center where he remains to this day, awaiting his trial. Though his crime is clear, and it's likely he will spend the rest of his life either behind bars or in some kind of institution.
He's going to an institution.
The events that happened on that fateful morning are still somewhat unknown to this day, though we do know the events that led up to it, and the years of hurt and anger that Tebebe had built up, as well as his inconsistent and dangerous use of antipsychotics. Which, unsurprisingly, it appears that he had again attempted to take himself off of his meds in the time surrounding his murderous fit, with this being used as the likely reason for his behavior that day, something that was telegraphed in one single video, which, looking back, almost foreshadows the tragic events that were soon to come, events that may have been further spurred on by the viewers watching.
How long ago was that video for chapter 3?
The story begins on a tragic note, as a family says their goodbyes to their 3-year-old daughter. In the days prior, the young girl had developed a severe fever, and without access to an up-to-date medical facility, she would pass away in the morning hours on July 12th. With no pulse and no heartbeat, the little girl was pronounced dead and taken home to prepare for the funeral, which would be held the next day. It was obviously a somber event, as the girl was placed in her casket and the lid was shut. Family members and loved ones gathered around to celebrate the short life of a child who deserved so much more, and watch as she was placed into the ground, which would be her final resting place. But before that would happen, one of the neighbors had been in charge of arranging the young girl's body before burial. Though something strange happened when he went to do so. Inside the coffin, the young girl's head began to move. It was a slight twitch, but in a panic, the neighbor checked for a pulse only to discover that her heart was still beating.
What?
The young girl was breathing. One of the family members begins to record as the sudden wave of realization hits that the child was actually alive.
They're just recording this? That's... what?
It's the ultimate case of what if. Had that person not opened the casket to reposition the body, then that little girl would have been buried alive, and no one would have ever known. It's a clip that I'm sure many of you have seen by now, as the original video itself has garnered over 1 million views. And topping that, a news station that covered the story currently sits with 25 million views. It's one of the more viral horror stories that I've ever seen on YouTube, as seemingly everyone knows about this infamous video. And rightfully so. I mean, it's one of the craziest stories I have ever seen, both on YouTube or in the news. But the only problem is, this viral video didn't tell the whole story.
What do you mean?
The story itself does in fact appear to be true, having been confirmed by Philippine officials who admitted that a mistake had been made in that particular hospital, which led to the mix-up.
How do you make a mistake that big? They almost buried their whole daughter alive. How do you make a mistake that big?
And almost to the mistaken burial. But the story doesn't have the happy ending that many of us thought, as in reality, that child never actually woke up. She did have a pulse and shallow breathing, but she would never regain consciousness and remained in a comatose state. In fact, just 2 days after this video was taken, and on the 15th of July, she would once again be pronounced dead, this time for real. But looking back on the viral video viewed by millions, the anchors say that she was fine, calling it a miracle.
Happy tears, knowing that the baby, thankfully she's fine.
I didn't give the whole story.
Yeah.
And that's the end.
That is
Computers are coming your way.
a shame that they mistake that big.
Divorce is often one of the more traumatic experiences that a young child can go through, as many are left in a state of confusion and distress at such a tumultuous time in their life. And for a young man named Daniel Bartlam, his childhood was sadly no different. Growing up in Nottinghamshire, England, Daniel's parents, Jackie and Adrian, would separate following the birth of Daniel's younger brother, with the situation leading to a split in the family, as the young boys would move to a new home with their mother. This brought Daniel to an unfamiliar town, as well as a brand new school, And to top it all off, Daniel's mother would soon find a new partner, further adding to the confusion that Daniel must have been feeling. All of these circumstances would lead Daniel to a declining mental state as he began to isolate himself in his room, barely speaking to his family. Daniel's mother Jackie was well aware of the change in his behavior, and she soon thought of the perfect way to bring him out of this depression. So she saved up some money on the side until she eventually had enough to buy Daniel his very own iMac, a computer that he had been asking for years. At the time, Daniel had a vested interest in technology, even having his own YouTube channel dedicated to the topic. But this new computer meant an upgrade in quality and a future with limitless possibilities. Overjoyed, Daniel quickly began a new channel and dedicated his very first upload to his new device.
Hello YouTube, this is Daniel AB1702 here, and it's finally happened. I now have an iMac, and I can now make bigger and better videos.
The video is clearly nothing too special, as the quality is about what you would expect from a kid his age who is just starting out. And the following videos were much the same, with these uploads simply being compilations.
It was in what, 18K views, 9K views? I mean, just starting off. Hey,
it all may not have seemed like much, but this computer, along with this new channel, seemed to be the spark that he so badly needed, a new passion and a new outlook on life. But strangely, after just a few uploads, the account would go silent. This is something that happens all the time on YouTube, where a creator starts posting with high aspirations before abandoning their work, and it's typically due to a lack of success or just the overall busyness of life. But in Daniel's case, his reason for leaving was far darker, as right around the time of his last upload, he would experience the ultimate tragedy. On the morning of April 25th, 2011, neighbors of Daniel had reported hearing a commotion coming from his home. That commotion would soon turn to chaos, as the house suddenly erupted into flames, with smoke billowing out all sides. Through the commotion, Daniel would emerge from the home with his little brother and dog in hand, but his mother was nowhere to be found. Police and fire units arrived at the scene quickly, but were already too late, as inside the home they would find the badly burned and disfigured body of Jackie.
That's sad.
And surprisingly, they'd soon notice that it wasn't the fire that had done her in, but rather she had been brutally murdered with what appeared to be a hammer. The scene was shocking and incredibly chaotic, but luckily Daniel had been there to explain everything. According to the child, a masked burglar had entered the home before confronting his mother. The confrontation then led to the anonymous person attacking Jackie with a hammer, causing her to collapse to the floor. He then says the intruder lit her body on fire, leading Daniel to grab his brother and dog and escape from the blaze, saving what remained of his family as the murderer escaped out the back.
But didn't call the police during
Daniel's story stood out for several reasons, mainly because it showed Daniel was a hero for saving his brother and dog, and it showed just how traumatic that morning must have been for him, as in the matter of one day, Daniel had lost his home and his mother in probably the most devastating way imaginable. But his story also stood out for one other reason, with that reason being in regards to the killer. As police began their investigation, they searched and searched for any clues left behind from this supposed masked intruder, but they found nothing. No fingerprints, no footprints, no anything.
I mean, could you really find fingerprints on a burnt house? Wouldn't fire just destroy DNA? I mean, unless it's on a window that didn't break, but like, I don't see how you would find fingerprints on a burned down house.
Any semblance of a lead. They started to search through Daniel's room, where through the charred remains, they miraculously found his computer in perfect working order.
Really?
Authorities would search the child's device when they stumbled upon something rather bizarre. It was a story that Daniel had typed months before in a Word document that was set as the scene of a soap opera that he had been writing. The story read, Daniel Bartlam, 1997 to 2047, the longest-serving male character to be on the show. The only place he couldn't get away with his deeds was with his mother, Jackie. So one evening, he made it look as though it was a break-in, and murdered his mother with a hammer, and then set her and the family home alight, but helped his brother out to safety, and got his neighbors to contact the police. The story ends with Daniel lying to the police and getting away with murder. It was a shocking revelation.
He's one stupid man. You're stupid. You are stupid. I'm just crazy. Like, it's crazy how the whole iMac is in good condition. Show you them iPhones, man. You know, Apple be doing their thing with, like, indestructible. Like, I'm telling you. Like, they little skinny iPhones, they might break easy. But, like, depending on, like, the thickness of it, like, breaking it, I mean, that's pretty.
As his mother had been killed with a hammer and set on fire through what Daniel had described as a break-in, just as his story was written. And to make it all stranger, further investigation would reveal that in the days prior to Jackie's death, Daniel had attempted to delete the document, though he had failed to fully remove it. And the findings went deeper, as countless screenshots and clips of a character from a show called Coronation Street were found on the hard drive, with it appearing as though Daniel had an obsession with this character, which proved to be rather interesting, as the character, John Stape, was a villain who had murdered another character with a claw hammer, the same weapon used on his mother. Investigators would keep digging until they eventually found the nail in the coffin, as it was revealed that in the days prior to the attack, Daniel had searched how to get away with murder. With the slew of information and the lack of evidence that a break-in had ever occurred, Daniel's story quickly fell apart, until he eventually admitted the gruesome truth that he had been the one who had taken his mother's life. On the 24th of April, Daniel would spend the night in his room rewatching one of his favorite Saw movies. He then emerged from the room carrying a claw hammer and approached his sleeping mother. He proceeded to strike her 7 times in the face before eventually setting her body on fire and escaping the home with his brother and dog, acting as the hero who had quote-unquote saved the day, when in reality it was all his doing. And the entire series of events had been plotted out on the very computer that his mother gave him, the same computer that he had so excitedly made this video on just months before the attack. To this day, we don't really know why Daniel chose to attack his mother, as any reason he's given has been fairly easily disproven by gold tier and god tier patrons.
Hey look, these Apple computers are expensive. They're expensive, not the laptops I'm talking about. They like the full computers. They like $1,000+ Some is up there. For you to save your money to get your kid that's plotting to kill you, using the research on that same computer, that just makes you think. I would never buy my kid shit. I'm just playing. I would, but I'll be questioning, what the hell you searching, little boy? Nah, that's crazy, because it didn't say anything about his mom being like abusive to him. Oh, that's YouTube's Darkest Videos 2, which is by Nick Crowley. So if y'all want to watch the original video, the link will be in the description. If you guys want to see me react to more of his videos, because I'm pretty sure he has like a whole thing around videos like this, y'all let me know, man. You know it's spooky season, so we all here with the spooks. But I'm gonna let y'all go. If y'all enjoyed the video, hit that like, comment, and subscribe if you ain't subscribed yet, and I'll catch y'all later.